Nothing's approach to tech has been refreshing, to say the least, especially when it comes to the mid-range affordable smartphone market. If nothing else, it's nice to see a company doing things differently. In fact, in a lot of ways, I think the Nothing Phone 2A, with its price tag of around £320 in the UK or $350 in the US, is a much better value proposition than most other mid-range phones, including the Pixel 7a. I'm Cam Bunton from Pocket-lint, and in this video, I'll tell you why. One of the things I really like about the Nothing Phone 2a is that its approach to this mid-range affordable segment is quite different to most other smartphone makers. Because most, like Samsung, Motorola, OnePlus and others, when you're looking at this low end of the mid-range segment, don't tend to put the same emphasis on attention to detail. And this is seen most obviously in the design of the phone. Look at it head on, side by side with the more expensive Pixel 7a, and you'll see what I mean pretty much immediately. And it's all about those bezels around the display. Not only are they thin, they're a completely uniform thickness all the way around all four edges, and the radius of the curve matches the curve on the outside of the phone. Look at any other phone in this price range and even higher, and you'll notice that the bottom bezel is usually thicker, and that the corners don't quite match. And that's not just true in the mid-range market. There are flagship phones without this uniform, purposeful approach to design. On the back, you get what's almost like a playful character. The top third with its centrally placed cameras looks like cartoon eyes in a head, with the bottom two-thirds almost like its body. Here, while different, the Pixel 7a does have similar design strengths. It's not playful, but the Pixel design is minimalist, strong and purposeful. And it has that sturdy aluminium mid-frame that adds a sense of rigidity to the feel and durability. It's also water and dust resistant to a higher level. You get splash resistance on the Nothing Phone, and it is dust tight, but I definitely resist the urge of dunking it in water for any extended period of time. The other thing I found surprisingly about the Nothing Phone was that despite being made from plastic on the back and the sides, it actually feels really good. The edges feel sturdy and have a texture to them that's not too smooth and not too rough, providing good grip to the handset while the buttons are nice and clicky. With that, plus the fact that it's not all that heavy despite being a large phone, and it's a device that's a pleasure to hold and use day in and day out, I've been really impressed by it. Then of course there's that collection of LED strips on the back called glyphs. No longer covering the entire rear of the phone, the glyph light area is smaller but almost as customizable. You can have them flash for notifications and customize ringtones and glyph patterns to match your preferences. And you can even have them flashing in time to any music or media playing on your phone. As cool and unique as they are, and they are definitely that, it's not something I found all that much use for. I'm not someone who has their phone face down on any surface. I just don't want to risk scratching the screen. And so the lights are rarely, if ever, facing me, so they just don't catch my attention in the way that they're designed to. You might be different, but to me they're more of a novelty feature than an essential one. But still, it's a refreshing approach. Now, while design shows attention to detail, there's one area I think the Nothing Phone 2a really stands out in this affordable market, and that's the display. At 6.7 inches, it's pretty large and has enough pixel density from its Full HD Plus resolution screen that it looks nice and sharp at the usual arm's length. That's a good start, but it's not the only quality that makes it impressive. Again, looking at it side by side with Google's more expensive Pixel 7a, I noticed the quality of the panel was much better in a few ways. First, it doesn't suffer from the same level of color shifting as the Pixel when you're viewing it from an angle, so you don't get that subtle rainbow effect across the screen. Second, its refresh rates are much smoother, and this is something I actually noticed mostly in the general user interface. Switching from 120Hz on the Nothing Phone to the 90Hz on the Pixel, I could see the smoothness and the sharpness was that bit better. It might not be the absolute pinnacle of LTPO technology, adjusting refresh rates at increments as small as the top tier smartphones do, but it's definitely smooth and adaptive enough to make everything feel smooth and responsive. It also happens to be really bright too, compared to a lot of similarly priced phones. With a high brightness mode peak of 1100 nits, it's pretty easy to see it outdoors even in daylight. Its HDR peak is 1300 nits, which a couple of years ago was about what you'd expect on the most expensive phones, and it means the phone is capable of displaying HDR10+ content. Now, one area Nothing has been keen to differentiate itself from everyone else is in the software design. Its minimal retro user font styles and mostly monochrome color scheme with a splash of red is distinctive and unique. There are things to like and things that need improvement. I love the collection of widgets on offer for things like the clock and weather. There's also a music widget you can have on screen anytime that shows the album art of any music currently playing, effectively using the same tech that the music playing widget uses in the drop-down notification shade whenever you have music or media playing on your popular apps, and it works with most music apps. I also really like the customization of folders where they can be resized and given their own icons, which is pretty much necessary when you're using Nothing's launcher icon pack. With most of those being black and white and so many apps without Nothing versions of their icons, you end up with a weird mix of monochrome and original color icons otherwise. Nothing is a little behind on software support commitments compared to the big name flagships though, but comparable to similarly priced phones. It'll get 3 years of major updates, taking it up to 2027. Pixel 7a as a comparison will be supported up to at least May 26. Now, as I've mentioned, the feeling of fluidity and smoothness is real when it comes to the Nothing Phone 2a, and it goes to show that you don't actually absolutely need the top-tier flagship processors in order to get a phone that feels responsive and quick. Inside this phone there's the Dimensity 7200 Pro, a tweaked chipset designed in collaboration with MediaTek, and one that's got plenty of oomph behind it to make your casual games easy to play. In games that have higher graphical demands, what I found was that it would reduce resolution in order to keep the gameplay smooth, ensuring that frame rates don't drop too much. A rally racing game I like to play, for instance, was set to 720p, but with all the other graphic settings like shadows, particles, and other details set to ultra settings, and frame rates were able to hit up to 120 frames per second. So if you play games like Call of Duty or Genshin, you might find details aren't completely pin sharp, but the smoothness doesn't tend to drop too much. I didn't see much in the way of stuttering or lag, which is great in a phone at this price. The Pixel 7a is similar, although I did seem to feel the Pixel got a bit warmer to touch in those gaming sessions or using the camera compared to the Nothing phone. Similarly, the 5000 mAh battery is more than good enough to get me through a full day. In fact, it's really strong. With my own moderate to light usage, which is a mixture of social media, video watching, browsing and casual gaming for about 2 or 3 hours a day, I'd easily finish the day with around 40 or 45% left over, meaning it's not far off being a 2-day battery. Pixel wasn't really close to that, usually ending around 30%, so definitely not a 2-day phone. Plus, with up to 45 watt charging speeds, it can be refilled again relatively quickly. You'll get a full recharge in about an hour, or a 50% charge in 23 minutes. There's no wireless charging though, which is one area the Pixel offers more. So where things start to swing away from Nothing and in favour of the Pixel 7a as an example is in the camera department, and not just because of the results, but what it's like to use the camera itself. One thing I found consistently on the Nothing phone was that things just happened in a delayed fashion. Switching between the ultra-wide and the main cameras or tapping the 2x zoom button all results in a slight delay, as does pressing the shutter button to capture a video or a photo. Pixel's phone tends to handle those changes a little quicker, although there is a slight jump when changing lenses. The other thing I found was that the Pixel results were just a bit more consistent across both lenses. I often found the Nothing phone would push the contrast and exposure higher with the primary camera and its 2x digital crop, giving images sometimes quite a harsh look, especially if there are bright sources of light in the frame. It would usually be far more saturated too, giving colours an over-rich look that wasn't really all that natural. Still, for a phone in this price range, it tends to cope well when there's lots of light in the scene. It can focus pretty closely to objects too, so you don't need to be too far away to get an in-focus shot. In scenes indoors or in lower light situations though, you can tell it struggles to retain detail and perhaps is disguising that with increased contrast and colour saturation. In fact, indoors in daytime it wanted to kick automatically into night mode even though there was light levels that should have been relatively decent. As for video, it is something the Nothing phone could definitely improve. Not only does it only go up to 30 frames per second when shooting 4K, but I found it also suffered a little from rolling shutter effects. So when combined, if you're panning quickly or even not so quickly in any scene, the Pixel's footage comes out looking a lot smoother. Nothing's video is a little stuttery when the camera is moving. Now, taken at face value, it's hard to imagine a better looking, better designed phone for the money than the Nothing Phone 2a, and it has the display, performance and battery life to match, combining to create what I think is the best overall phone experience for this money. It's not perfect, the camera is a little bit of a weak spot and something that could definitely be improved, especially when comparing it to Google's A-series phone. But still, the Pixel costs more, it has a poorer display, a poorer battery, so as long as you're okay with a camera system that's decent but not brilliant, there's so much right with the Nothing phone. It's won me over. Let me know what you think of this phone in the comments down below, or you can get me on Threads. I'm at Cam Bunton. If you did like this video, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe and tap that notification bell, and then you won't miss any more of our uploads. I'll see you again in the next one. Bye for now.